Hi everyone again, it's Heidi Barrett. I wanted to make a little video for you to kind of showcase what can be done with some soap molds. The first thing I want to talk to you about is what you're going to need. We'll point out some molds, some things that work well with molds, some things that don't, and then I will go ahead and show you what works best for me. Like anything, you'll probably want to take a little bit of what I do, add a little bit of what you do, and see what works best for you, but this should hopefully get you started. The first thing that you're going to need is this is a piece of old stocking with cornstarch. It's actually not old stocking because I thought that was kind of gross. It's a new stocking that I cut off with cornstarch in. You could just use a little bowl of cornstarch for this. It wouldn't matter. You're also going to need, I use paintbrushes to put the cornstarch in my mold and to brush it out. And you also need to have, either you can have an X-Acto knife like this. As you can see, I've used mine a lot. I tend to use the flat edge of it when I'm doing stuff on molds so it doesn't cut. Or if you feel like investing in it and waiting for it, if you go to places like Wish or AliExpress, you can get these that they're rubbery on the tip. And you can use those as well for cleaning up the edges of the soap clay in your mold before you unmold it. You are also going to need some molds. There are several places that you can get molds. These molds are from one of my favorite mold makers, which is WhysperFairy. She's on Etsy. The reason I like these is because the molds are not as soft, so I can press and usually get stuff out of them a little bit easier. If it has a lot of undercuts, a softer mold is better, but these don't have a whole lot of undercuts, and they allow me to push the clay hard enough into the details without disfiguring the mold, because the mold is less squishy and more solid. The ones that we're going to do today is we're going to do a cameo, and we're going to do the bee. If you remember, this is the other cameo that I did. I did it in white and painted it, and if you look through the videos, there's a video showing how to do the painting. And the bee is going to be more like this door. The bee, actually, I'm going to paint a solid gold for more of a luxury soap, but this door was also a WhysperFairy mold that was painted with micas and vodka. So let's go ahead and, oh, I almost forgot the most important ingredient you need to have is some soap clay. This is a pretty decent consistency. I found with these molds, I can still use it if it's a little bit soft. It just gets my fingers a little bit more dirty, and it takes a little bit more carefulness to get it out without it squishing. So let's go ahead and start with the white one, because I found that if I had the tan on my fingers, then my white turned tan. I tend to work a lot with white soap clay because I can paint it whatever color I want, but it also is very finicky as far as if you have any other colors on your hands at all, it shows. So first step is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to get some cornstarch on it, and I'm going to go ahead and rub that into the mold. You don't want a ton of it. You don't want to be able to see it. You also want to make sure you don't have any crusties or crumbs in your mold, because your soap clay will pick it up. I usually use a second brush, and if there's a little bit much, I will go ahead and brush it out. So there's an almost invisible layer of cornstarch in there. The next thing that you're going to want to do is to take a chunk of soap clay and soften it up in your hands. I find that it generally takes a whole lot less soap clay to fill a mold than what I guess it will take, so I end up having leftovers. It's easier to add extra to a mold that you're molding than it is to take it out after it's molded. The other thing you have to be careful about with white is if you roll it in your hands and you have anything on your hands at all, it will show. Okay, so let me move you in a little bit so you can see closer what I'm doing. I have my ball of soap clay. I'm going to kind of angle it into the most detailed part of the mold and push it down very firmly against the design. And this is where having the more firm material for the mold is helpful, because it allows me to press against the bottom without disfiguring my shape. And as you can see, I'm kind of rolling the edges in as I go. And that would be where your X-Acto knife or your rubber tool would come in handy. We go ahead and roll in the edges. This is especially helpful if your clay is a little bit soft and when you try to roll the edges in, they are sticky. Or if you have a whole lot of clay into your mold so that when you roll it in, it ends up just squishing out. And then whatever I pushed up, I just kind of smosh into the back. And then, to take it out, I've also found it's helpful to have a dish towel or something to wipe your fingers on handy. Go ahead and I'm going to peel back one side and roll it out. And this is white, so it's a little hard to see the details, but this is a cameo with flowers on it. I try not to leave an edge around it that I have to trim. When I first started doing them, I left the edge around for them to trim, and it's actually a lot more tedious and difficult to trim that edge than you would think. So when doing the bumblebee, he has a little bit more details in these little legs here. So let me show you what I'm going to do with that one. I'm going to do the same step. I'm going to start with some cornstarch and stick that in the bee. I want to make sure that I get inside those little deeper leg parts. And I'm going to take my second brush. You can see that it's got a little bit of visible cornstarch, so I'm going to go ahead and brush that out. So if you see now, it's just the texture of the bee and there's not big chunks of cornstarch anymore. Go ahead and take some of my clay. This is a tan clay, and this clay is actually a fairly perfect consistency. I've been having to play with my water ratio. The soap clay recipe that I use is one from the Sorcery Soap book. I think it's $20 for the book of recipes, and I use recipe number 9, or she has a free recipe that is also very nice in consistency. I've been playing around with my standard recipe to see if I can come up with the exact water ratio that I want. So I don't have to change ingredients on my label when I use soap clay embeds. But I haven't quite gotten there yet, so I've had a couple of soft batches, which, like I said, you can go ahead and do a softer clay in here as long as you practice rolling up those edges to get it out, and you definitely want to make sure you use cornstarch. This one is slightly softer, so you can see it's a little bit more dirty on the edges, so this would be one where go ahead and take the tool and roll in, and you kind of just roll in until you see that edge of the details on the inside showing. With a design like this where the legs are cut out, you can decide how detailed you want to go as far as rolling in from the edge. I tried a couple ways with this before I sat down to make the video, and with those skinny legs at the bottom, you can go ahead, sorry if I was off camera again, you can go ahead and follow that detailed line up. Sorry, there it is. I was a little disoriented in my design. See that design, the leg indent? You can go ahead and follow that up to give your legs a little bit more of the cutout look. Up here at the top there's also, if you dig deep enough, you see that is the little opening between the antennas and the head. You can, if you use less clay than this, it's easier to find those. I decided for the design that I'm going to do, I wanted to leave those in the leg area filled in because I'm planning on making a soap where I would want this to like almost like an old-fashioned wax seal, so I don't want it to be completely perfect. So, alright, same thing with the bee. He's pretty much as clean on the edges as I can get him without trying to get in on those leg and antenna details. And I'm going to do the same thing, but now this one, since those legs are a little bit deeper in and more delicate, I'm going to start at the leg end and kind of release him out and roll him into my hand. And see, if you don't do a good job of rolling in that edge from the mold, you can see that one little area there, it will stick a little bit more. Don't worry, it's not going to ruin your project. you'll get them out, and if you don't, it's clay, so you can just wad it up and try it again. If you find that after getting your piece out of the mold, it has an area like a leg sticking up funny, or a crack or a seam, you can sometimes fix the cracks or seams, but if it's a leg or something out of place, you can kind of just gently move it back into place. If you're finding that you're having cracks or like parts where two pieces of clay meet together and you have like a crack or a seam in your mold, then you're not pushing in hard enough, and you want to push in harder so that that seam gets kind of mushed out of existence. Let me see if I can show you an example of what that would look like. If you are using a piece of clay and you fold it over, or you have two pieces of clay and you put them next to each other like this, and then you put them in the mold and you push them down, but you don't push hard enough when you take it out of the mold, you see how it's got that crack mark in there? That's just from not pressing hard enough, and if you press harder into your mold, that will go ahead and go away. So that is how to use these molds. Again, these particular two molds are from WhysperFairy. You can get them from other places. You can get a lot of molds from AliExpress or from Wish or Amazon. Etsy's a great place to shop for molds. But like I said, I really like these WhysperFairy molds because of the texture of the silicone, that it both releases easy and is solid enough to let you press hard to get rid of those crack marks and not distort the shape. So I hope this was informative for everybody. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'm happy to try and answer them for you, or if you have anything that you'd like to see, I'm happy to try and make a demo video for you. But that's all for now. Bye.